Hello and welcome to another segment of Interviews That Matter. I'm your host Raj Mehta. On August 10, 2012, Lance Corporal Greg Buckley Jr. was gunned down in a tragic incident in Afghanistan. Today, we have in our studio Greg Buckley Sr. to tell us exactly what happened on that day. Let's meet Greg Buckley Sr. We are here having a conversation with Greg Buckley Sr. Welcome, sir. Welcome to the show. Appreciate it. And first of all, really feel bad and really sorry about hearing about your son, a 21-year-old son, and it's not easy to lose a 21-year-old son. Really feel for you.
Thank you very much.
And I really want to start with that, as I know that he really volunteered himself to go to the army and to go to the also Afghanistan. So can you tell us
to the Marine Corps? Yes.
A little bit about that?
Yeah, it's pretty much from the beginning with Greg. He was a young man when 9/11 happened, Twin Towers. I was down Twin Towers with my brother and a few other guys helping out for 2 days. So that affected my son, not knowing where his dad was for 2 days and knowing what happened at 9/11. So as he got older, he was about 15 years of age, he told me that after high school he was going to join the Marine Corps. So as a father, I okayed him, didn't think he was serious. In his senior year, I came home and there was a recruiter, in the house, sitting there talking to him and his mom about Greg joining the Marine Corps. Of course, I came home, was taken back, so I asked the gentleman to leave. I sat and talked to my son for 2 months about it, and he decided, convinced me that this is what he was going to do. So right after high school, 3 months later, he was in the Marine Corps. He was in boot camp. He was over in North Carolina, and we didn't get to speak to him for months while he was in boot camp. But then when we went to see his graduation, it was incredible, very moving. His brothers were crying, because he was a different person. He went in as a boy. And after boot camp, he was a man. It was just incredible.
Wow.
Things that they say are true. He was always respectful young man growing up. Great kid, always. I always call him an angel because that's what he was. He's walked around like an angel. He was just an all-around good kid. Typical kid, get in trouble, do things that normal boys would do. But then he turned around, got out, and then he turned around and told us that he had good news and bad news. And I said, what was the good and bad? And he said, what do you want to hear first? I said, the bad. And he said, the bad is that I'm going to be shipped off to Hawaii. And I said, what's the good part? He said, well, the good part is that there's beautiful women there. But it was sweet a beat. It was a sweet thing for him to go there. He was going to be over in Hawaii, but we had the understanding with the recruiter that he was going to have a civilian job there in the Marine Corps. And when he went over there, he was working with the import-export. So he'd work in a warehouse and ship things in and out of Hawaii to wherever they had to go. And that was the understanding. He went in when he was 17, so he wasn't supposed to step foot in Afghanistan. So he was moving progressively up on his job, and he got a promotion, and he was doing great. He was in there for about 2.5 years, came home for my birthday in March, and told me that when he goes back in the beginning of April that he's going to be leaving to Afghanistan. Now I was taken back, and I was like, why would you go to Afghanistan? You have a job, you're not supposed to go to Afghanistan. He said, well, they're making me go, I have to go, and that's it. And I was, taken back. I was very upset about it. So was his mom and his brothers. So winds up, we accepted it, and we didn't really have a choice. So he went to Afghanistan in the middle of April. We didn't hear from him probably for a good 2-3 weeks. Then he gave us a call and told us where he is in Afghanistan, and things okay, not a problem. Then he said I wouldn't be able to speak to you for a couple days because they were moving him around Afghanistan. So he got back to us probably maybe 10 days later. He got back to us and he told us, where he's stationed in Afghanistan, and he said it's a hellhole. And what do you mean by that? He goes, there's no electric, there's no gas, it's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
He says the streets, are, dangerous at night. He says the whole place is just not right. He says the people are a little shady. He says, I just don't feel right here at all.
Mm.
So I said, are you on your base? And he said, yeah, we're on our base, but we're not allowed to carry our weapons on our bases. And he goes, and then the Afghan police that were here training are fully armed all the time with AK-47s.
Wow.
So I thought that was a little unusual. So we made a few phone calls to find out if it's true, and of course, stonewalled, nobody would give us an answer about if it's true or not. So, because people said they never heard of that before, but it was the truth, as we found out later on. So he would call me time and time again, every week at least once, and we would talk, and he would tell me how dangerous it is over there. And he says during the daytime it's fine because they're fully armed and they got their gear on, the helmets, and they're out in the fields training these Afghan police officers to become police officers. But the thing here is that what he used to say over and over again is that he just didn't feel comfortable in that area where he was in Afghanistan. He said that he felt to a point that he wasn't going to be able to, make it all the way to November. And as a dad, I was taken back about it. So he called me back. It was right before Memorial Weekend. And he said, Dad, he says, I have to tell you something. I said, what's that? He goes, I don't think I'm coming home in November. And I was, why wouldn't you come home in November? That's when you're stationed, you're supposed to be coming home. He said, no, he says, I have a feeling that something's going to happen to me here. He said, I feel like I'm going to be murdered here. And
that's what he said?
Yeah. It
Wow.
was I think the week before Memorial Week. He said that I'm going to be murdered over here in Afghanistan. And I says, that's impossible, Greg. I says, all you guys are there. He goes, no, he goes, you don't understand. He goes, it's just something's not right here. He says, we don't walk around with our guns. The Afghan police walk around with their guns all the time, fully loaded, and then they hand them off to civilians that are considered T-boys over there. And they walk around with these AK-47s also. They're, easy access to them. And he says, and they sleep downstairs from us, and we sleep upstairs. And he's heard stories when he got there about, how years and years ago, what happened with the Russians over there back in the late 80s, early 90s, how they were being executed at night while they were sleeping. So he said he has a very hard time sleeping. He can't sleep at night. He's up all day in the heat. And then when he gets home at nighttime, he can't go to bed at night, and he just doesn't feel right. So I said, speak to your officers, the superior officers, and his superior officers are like, there's really nothing they can do either, They're Marines, they're told to do something, that's their job, and this is what they do, and just let's stay put and wait to, their superiors tell them what to do. But right now, they got to stay here, and they got to do what they're told to do. That's what Marines do. So that was the whole part about being a Marine my son loved so much, is because camaraderie. They all stick together. When one says to do something, they all do it, and that's just the way it works.
Right.
So as time went on, following 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, he mailed a letter home back to the house. I think he wrote it June 9th. And the letter stated, he's thanking me and for everything I've done for him throughout his life, and thanking his mom for everything she's done, and that she's the queen of his life, and so forth and so on, and telling his brothers, he only joined the Marine Corps so his two younger brothers could be proud of him and look up to him and make something of their lives and grow up to be good young men. So when you read the letter, you read it and you stop to think for a second, why did he write this letter? This is a goodbye letter. And I got him on the phone probably 2 weeks after that, because sometimes he wouldn't be able to call, he would be on a mission. And when I got him on the phone, I asked him, why'd you write that letter? I go, your mom's upset, and your brothers are upset, and so am I, because it sounds like a goodbye letter. He goes, well, I did tell you that I really don't feel like I'm going to be coming home.
Wow, that is so sad.
Yeah, so he's 20 years old at this time, and he just had a gut feeling inside, the way it was over in Afghanistan, where he was based. He felt no security for him or his friends, and all of his friends there that I've talked to, parents, like Richard Rivera's family. Scott Dickerson is another gentleman, another soldier, another Marine that winded up passing away, that was murdered that day. And they turned around and said that their sons didn't feel safe there whatsoever. And Mrs. Rivera, she said the same exact thing that I said, that, you know, Richard turned around, called her, and, you know, emailed her and wrote letters to her and saying that he felt very unsafe there, and he felt that he might be murdered over there. So as it went on, you know, he was just putting in his time and trying to stay alert at all times. I hear from friends of his now that the stories that he would tell me about staying up all night were true, because a few of the guys that survived this called me after and told me, they said, you know, we can always count on Greg, you know, as they called him, Buck. They said we can always count on Buck, that in the middle of the night, if we were waking up, you know, with a bad dream or we couldn't sleep at night, we would look across the room and there would be Buck wide awake, you know, sitting up in his bed. And we would all, you know, even though they said Buck was one of the youngest guys in our, you know, group, we would all go to him and we would hang out with him and just talk to him, and he would tell us stories, you know, or into the morning, a few of the guys said. And they said he was maybe 20 years old, but he had more stories than a 50-year-old. He was just that type of kid, and he was a great person to talk to and make you laugh. Or there would be pictures of them, you know, with shower caps on and doing the merengue and the cha-cha, and he would teach everybody how to dance. It was just a lot of fun to be around. And they all loved him a lot. And they looked after him like, you know, that was their little brother, even though he was always there for them, the older guys. So it's like heart-wrenching for a lot of the Marines that were there that survived that it happened. And it happened to him and Rivera, who was even younger than Greg. Rivera was 19.
Oh boy.
So, and it was heart-wrenching, you know, and his mom, I'm going to go visit her in California where she lives. I'm going to go visit her in 2 weeks from now.
Okay.
I'm going to go visit her for the first time. I've seen her in Dover, but that was the last time, and I'm going to go visit her. But like I said, so it went on, and then we went into July, and he turned around and called me up towards right after his birthday, because for his birthday he was on a tour. He wasn't even to call us. He turns 21 on July 17th.
Oh, July 17th, okay.
And he called us, I think it was about a week or two after that, and he said, I got great news. And I said, what's that? He says, I'm going to be coming home real soon. So I says, coming home? He says, yeah. He said, I'm going to be getting out of here. He said, they're going to let us go, and we're going to be leaving, and we should be back home by August 15th.
August 15th, okay.
August 15th, he'll be back home. So during the meantime, besides all of this, and I apologize, but I forgot to tell you, like he also said to me, is that he felt unsafe because there was a time that he was doing night duty, and one of the older officers, Afghani officers he was doing night duty with, Craig went to talk to him about, you know, playing basketball, trying to be friends with the gentleman, because that's the type of kid he was. The gentleman just looked at him in his eyes with hate, and this is a police officer stating to him, an older gentleman, saying, I don't want you here, we don't need you here, we don't want you here, and repeated this to him over and over and over and over again.
This is the person that they were training? We
were
were training them?
Yeah, and Greg went to be friends with him and talk to him. It was like a one-on-one, Greg and this guy, and they were just, Greg was trying to make friends with him.
Right.
But then, you know, he just kept it up and tormenting Greg throughout the night. And he told me about this, you know, right after everything happened. And these are the feelings that he got when he was there. He was like, they're not good people, you know. 1 minute they're nice to you in front of everybody. Then when you're alone, they're vicious. And he says they have like death in their eyes. You know, we're there to train them. And a conversation I had with Greg one day was that we're over here training these people to help them. And at the end of the day, these people hate us and they're going to murder us. And my son said, it doesn't even make sense, Dad. He says, we're training these people during the daytime how to shoot AK-47s, how to work out, how to do jumping jacks. And there's pictures, I have pictures of these guys that my son was training. And you see pictures of them doing jumping jacks and, you know, push-ups and everything else and shooting. And the end of it, Greg said, they're going to take those guns and they're going to murder us.
Wow. Wow.
And I was like, you know, as a father, you're like, it's like so far-fetched. Like, you can't believe that would ever happen. Like, the government would never allow that to happen to these young men.
Right.
So as it went on, from there, he turns around, he went, you know, started training these guys still after he had the conversation with me and told me that he would be home in a certain amount of days. Then he called me back. He said, I have only 15 days left. And he says, and I'm coming home.
Wow.
So he called me back again a couple of days later. He says, this is the best. He said, Dad, I can't wait to get home. He goes, I'm 21 years old now. He says, and I'm going to turn around. I'm going to come home. You and I will go to South Beach together. We'll have a legal beer together. I'm 21, you know. It's the first time you can walk into a bar and be legal. And he was like little things like that he was so excited about, you know, because, you know,
from where he was a lively person, basically.
Lively person. All he wanted to do was go to South Beach and dance and have a good time and, you know, and have a legal beer. And coming from where he was for all these couple months, it's like night and day. And he just didn't understand how people could live the way they live and treat other people the way they treat people. You know, the way they treat their, you know, the women, the way they treat other people that they're around. They're very cold. They're not warm people like we are here. In my family, we're all very warm. We're huggers. We kiss each other. You know, we tell each other we love them all the time. He said it's different over there. It's a whole different type of person. And no matter how much you want to be friends with them and be nice to these people, they just can't do it. And our government tells us that we got to be a certain way with these people. We, you know, we can't look them in the eye a certain way. We have to have our sunglasses off. We can't put our boots up on the table because they're not. You can't show the Afghani people the soles of your boots.
Oh, wow.
You can't talk about your children in front of them. You can't ask them questions about their children or their wives. You can't curse in front of them. You know, there's all these rules and regulations that the American people, the Marines, Army, and Navy, they have to follow to appease these people. Even though we're there training them and helping them, you know, we have to bend over backwards for them.
Wow, that's something.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
It's really something. It doesn't make sense. Yeah.
You know, I believe that it should be the opposite way. They should be bowing down to us and saying thank you, thank you for doing what you're doing for us and trying to bring peace and harmony to our country. But all they want to do is have hate in them. And these are police officers that we're training.
Wow.
Now, I don't want anybody to misunderstand me. I'm not saying that everybody's bad over in Afghanistan because it's not so. It's not true. You know, it's you can't go and say everybody's bad. You know, but a majority, a large majority are. They're ungrateful people. You know, you have the president of Afghanistan. You know, not once has he said sorry to the American people or sorry to the lost, you know, family members. You know, or just, you know, said thank you, you know, for your sons or your daughters, you know, lives, you know, that they lost their lives over here and training our military or our police. They never did that. You know, he never even came forward and said thank you to none of us. But our president is so fast to apologize when we burnt the Korans. Not saying that that was right. But he jumped out and started apologizing immediately. You know, anytime we do anything wrong, no matter what it is, we're over there apologizing. And what that shows, and you can take it or leave it, it shows that we're weak.
That's what I was going to say.
We're
shows that we are weak.
Extremely weak.
Yeah.
You know what? If one person's not apologizing for all the bad things that are going on in Afghanistan that they're doing to us, then why? If they're not apologizing, why are we apologizing? We're over there helping them. You know, and they don't appreciate it. He doesn't appreciate it. You know, the people that he has in his office, nobody appreciates it there. None of the police, the army, none of them, none of the people appreciate anything over there in Afghanistan. Their army does not appreciate anything that we do for them as far as I'm concerned. You know, and that's my opinion. It's, you know, but you know what? Because you learn from your, you know, your superiors. You know, if you're a president, your leader in chief in Afghanistan doesn't apologize and say sorry and, you know, thanks us, then, you know, why should they? You know, it's just like they act like we're intruding their space. Now, Kozine said that he's happy to find out that we're leaving in 2014 because they don't want us there. Now, there's been many interviews with CNN and other stations that they have interviewed people in Afghanistan that say they don't want the Marines, the soldiers over there anymore. They want to be left alone. Now, I look at it this way. If you don't want to come over to my house, then that's it. You don't come over. That's it, period.
Right.
If somebody doesn't want you to come over to their house, then you don't come over. If I tell you I don't want you here, then would you come over for dinner if I tell you I don't want you here?
No.
You know,
No way.
our president has his own hidden agenda, I feel. He has his own reasons for being there. And, it will sooner or later come out, hopefully, Things haven't came out yet, and the reason Bush did what he did. He had his own reasons for going after certain people.
Right.
But that's a whole other subject.
Right.
But that's like a vendetta he had, and that was the truth. But he should have been focused on somewhere else. But he went after some other country. But where it all comes down to here is that my son, 21 years old, in Afghanistan, training the police.
Right.
So they could take care of themselves and they can fight against Taliban and whatever else they need to do. He trains all day. He goes to sit down at the dinner table at night. He sits down and the people are talking at the table back and forth. And one of the Afghani T-boys turns around and says to the soldiers at the table that they're leaving in 2 days. Now they looked at him, and how would he know something like that?
Wow. Yeah.
How would that guy know that?
Yeah. Right.
They all finished dinner. They didn't pay it any mind. They get up, they walk out. Greg and his friends, same thing. They get up, they walk out, they go upstairs like they do every night, put their shorts on, and they go into the gym and they start working out in the back of the facility. At this time, from what I understand, on the base is usually 30 soldiers, 30 Afghanis. Then you have coming in and out, you have T-boys that walk in and out of the base freely. All right, they have
What
no.
is a T-boy?
T-boy is considered you can say considered a slave, basically,
So they
to
do
a superior officer.
Okay.
Now, I'll get into it later, but the gentleman that did this was a T-boy, the shooter. He was the T-boy to the head of the police department, the captain or whatever they would call him. Turns around, they all go to the gym to go work out. Everybody else leaves the facility. There's really nobody in the facility at around that time, 8:30. It was pretty empty, and usually it's not. Usually it's packed with the Afghani police and with the Marines. Most of the Marines went towards the gym or went upstairs or wherever they went to, and most of the Afghani police left the base at that time for some strange reason. One of the other guys were on base.
Only on that day, or
that
normally?
particular day?
Only that
at that time.
Oh,
They
okay.
really weren't in the base at that time.
Wow. Okay.
It was kind of empty. There was one or two around, but not like they usually are. So one of Greg's friends that were on a phone turned around and told me he heard a pop, pop, pop about around 8:30. Three or four shots. He started running towards the back of the gym. But what ended up happening is that the 19-year-old T-boy came in through the front of the facility, walked through the base, around the side of the base, and came through the curtain on the back part of the gym and lifted it up and came right through the back. Walked right through the base with an AK-47, and he had his regular civilian clothes on.
Okay.
So they're trying to say it was a green on blue attack in the beginning, but it wasn't. It was a civilian attack. He was a civilian, so it's a terrorist attack. This is what everybody has to understand.
Right.
This is a terrorist attack. He walked in, shot off 3 or 4 shots, stepped over onto my son, who was on a incline machine benching, and put the AK-47 to his chest and shot him in his chest.
Oh boy.
From what I don't, this is from what I know, from what I've heard from guys that were in the gym with him.
Right.
Shot him first. Then I guess he was getting up and went to spin to the side and shot him again somewhere over here on his neck. We're not positive, but this is what we were told from a couple of people that were in the gym. Then continually kept on shooting and raised the gun, and Rivera, Greg's best friend, was standing right behind him and shot him 2 times. Then went to his left and got Scott Dickerson, and then everybody else was scattered all over the place, and I think it was the sergeant was leaving, trying to get out of the gym also, and shot him 5 times. And he survived. He's in California right now. But it was total mayhem. Everybody left the gym. Then Oliver came back inside the gym right after this, and ran right over to Greg and grabbed him, but he said that Greg, was already gone. So,
so sorry.
he looked over at Scott Dickerson, and he was, gone already, and then Rivera was still alive. So he tried to help Rivera, as much as he can. And because Scott Oliver is considered a doc over there.
Okay.
He's in the Navy, and he's, they call him a doc because, obviously that's what he's doing. So they call him doc, and he was trying to help Rivera as much as he could. For I don't want to get into the details with it in case his mom sees it. She shouldn't be hearing it from me, but it's just something that you'd never want to see in your life. And he's, Oliver said it was just the most horrendous thing he's ever, seen in his life, and this is like his third tour, Oliver. And he said he'd never seen anything like this ever. And he says, and there was nobody to come in to help him at all. The shooter got up after he emptied out 34 bullets.
Wow.
AK-45, the bullets are this big.
Wow.
They're about 3 inches, these bullets. He emptied out 34 of them.
34.
Dropped the AK-47, ran out of the gym, went up onto the tower, and started yelling, to Allah and ranting and raving of what he just did inside. And it was just all you heard was screaming and yelling from everybody outside in the street. It was a good thing. I guess. I guess that's what they thought. That's this man just murdered 3 Marines, and it's a good thing. Even though those young boys were there to help these people, they didn't see it that way. So what ended up happening is a few of the Marines ran up onto the tower and pulled the gentleman down.
Okay.
Got him down to the ground. They were holding him in place. One of the other gentlemen ran upstairs to get his gun because, of course, they didn't know what was going on, had the gun. And a superior officer ran over and told him that, don't pull that trigger. If you kill this man, you're going to go to jail here in Afghanistan. Don't pull the trigger. Don't pull the trigger. Now, to today, that gentleman still regrets he didn't pull the trigger on him. He wishes that he would have.
And he's still there. Then
so he's fed. What he goes. He killed. He said to me. He goes. He killed Buck and he killed Rivera and Scott. He says I should have just shot him right then and there. I had him. I could have killed him because he had his pistol loaded. Because he went upstairs to his bunker and got it and loaded it and everything. Because their weapons were unloaded always, like I said before earlier. They're not allowed to have their weapons loaded. So that's the problem there, is that they were in such an unsafe environment, and they say it's their policy, but it's more of like they have all different things. It's disrespectful for a Marine or a soldier to have their weapons fully loaded on base. So every time they walked into base at night, they would have to empty out their gun, the clips, and leave their rifles. They're not allowed to walk around with their guns like the Afghans were. The Afghani police were allowed to walk around with their weapons 24 hours a day, where we're not allowed to.
So then, what happens if there's an attack at night? How can you just
They're
prepare it in a second?
It's really not, you're really, you're sitting like a sitting duck.
Wow.
Yeah, it's, they claimed all silly things like they didn't feel that it would be a safer environment if the Marines and the Army, these guys didn't have their weapons on them, these Marines, because God forbid in the middle of the night the weapon would go off and somebody would be injured. They had a million excuses. But we go through extensive training, in boot camp.
Right.
Extensive training.
Right.
That would never happen. But you're allowing an Afghan
to have a weapon.
They don't even know how to shoot a weapon. We're there teaching them how to shoot these weapons, but we're going to let them hold the weapons throughout the night.
Why?
Because it's disrespectful to take the weapon away from them. It's their soil.
Oh, it's disrespectful to take the weapon away from them?
Right. They have the right. They have more right than we do.
Wow.
So at that time, when they turned around and grabbed this gentleman, they arrested him. And right after that, they arrested the superior officer also, because the serial number on the gun matched the superior officer. It was his gun. And it was also his T-boy that committed the murder. So they kind of put both of them together.
Wow. Interesting.
So they arrested both of them, and within, I think, a couple of weeks, the captain, the police department, the superior officer, they released him, and they let him go, because the Afghani government said that we had nothing on him, And just because it was his gun doesn't mean that he told him to do it or anything else. But everything formed around him. T-boys don't do anything unless, they're told to do it.
Of course, yeah.
And this man was told to do this, and he did exactly what he was told to do, and everybody knew it, but you couldn't really prove it. Like Bin Laden. Bin Laden didn't he didn't drive those planes into the Twin Towers, but he said it and planned it, and it happened.
Yep.
So he was the one who was
responsible, right?
very responsible for it.
Yep.
And that's what we're trying to get a point across, is that this gentleman was responsible for this. They had no business letting him go. So now as we find out, we know that they're holding the 19-year-old, he's locked up, and now they're trying to prosecute him. So they got in touch with me after numerous phone calls. I mean, months and months and months and months we're calling to find out what's going on. No answers. Peter King has tried, get no response either. And it's just been going on. So turn around, we spoke out on NBC and CNN and other stations, and people started listening to me, and then I started getting answers. And then now the investigators are showing up, and they're asking me, how did I find out about the guns, the serial number? How did I find out about their names? How did I find out about how old they really were? When they first started saying that the kid was only 15, I found out he was 19 years of age. So they lied about that right off the get-go. So there's a lot of things that they've been lying about. They haven't came out with the truth, and they haven't gave me a full statement. I've been waiting for this, 6 months, and I haven't got it yet, of what happened to my son and how did it all happen. They don't want to give it to me because they know I know the truth already. Wow. So they can't cover anything up. They can't lie about it. This was a terrorist attack on a base where my son was supposed to be stationed, and he was supposed to be safe on that base. You strip him from all his weapons, and you leave him there like a sitting target, these young boys.
See, that rule I don't understand. Like, you are in the middle of the war and you don't have a weapon.
Right.
I mean, you are not allowed to carry a weapon. So that's the kind of...
well, the Afghani government said that they didn't want them to carry their weapons on base at night. They said that it's,
But most of the attack happened at night.
Yeah.
Right? So...
Well, back in the late 80s, early 90s, with Russia, those guys were being murdered at night too. They were over there trying to do the right thing and try to help them, but you can't help people that don't want help. Yeah. And that's it. Not the whole country is bad, but a majority of it is, and they don't give us anything in return. Why are we really there? Why are we there so long? We could set them up, we can give them the weapons, and you can only do so much.
Right.
You can bring, like the old saying, bring a camel over to the water, you can't make the camel drink it. It's, you can only do so much for people.
Right.
And when they don't appreciate what you do for them, then that's enough reason to just pull out. Why keep on giving lives after lives after lives? You're murdering these young boys over there, and they're being murdered, and they're doing something they weren't trained to do. These guys are Marines. They were trained to go out there and to fight. And to be killed or to kill. That's what they're there to do. Right. They're not there to be school teachers. They're not there to train these guys to become police officers and teach them how to do jumping jacks and sit-ups and pull-ups and shoot weapons and stuff. They felt that it's outrageous that they had to do these things, and it's not just my son that said this. I hear it over and over again, and now that I'm speaking out, all these other soldiers are calling me or getting in touch with me and telling me, you're 100% right. I didn't join the service to be a school teacher.
Right.
You know what? And if they did want me to train them, then you know what? They should have took them and brought them to a safer base.
Right.
And you train maybe 3 dozen at a time, and then you send them back to this, their little area that they need to be in, wherever that might be in Afghanistan. But you don't take these young men, these young Marines, bring them there and leave them vulnerable to be executed like they did. My son said he felt safe in the daytime because he was with all his guys, and they all had weapons on them, and they were, they were a group, and they felt powerful together, and they could have took on everybody. But then when you bring them inside the base, and they're enclosed, and there's only one way out and one way in, and you take their weapon away, and then the other people that are walking around
with the weapon,
nothing, it doesn't even sound right. It doesn't even make sense. But when I found out about this and I spoke out, they said, well, that's the policy, and we can't change the policies. So that's when I started speaking out
It's
on
a policy of the Army?
It's the policy that our government came up with Afghanistan.
Oh.
You know, they got together and they said, well, you know what, if this is what you want, this is what we're going to do.
Right, okay.
You know, Afghan didn't make that, they didn't make that policy up and on their own. They had to okay it with us.
Right.
Somebody on our side. And that person isn't speaking up and saying, yeah, it was me. And definitely, you know, our commander-in-chief isn't going to take blame for that, you know, where he really should take blame because he is our leader-in-chief. You know, you can't just take responsibility for the good things. When bad things happen, you have to be able to turn around and step up to the plate and say it was my mistake, it was my fault. I should have looked into this further. He didn't, you know. But that's a whole other story that we can get into later on about, you know, him. You know, it's just, it's sad. It's sad that these young men and women are not being respected and being taken care of by our government. Our government dropped the ball, and they keep on doing it. Last year alone, there was over 51 insider attacks.
By Afghans?
Yes.
Onto ours.
And during election time, Joe Biden turned around and said on national television that there was only 27. Now, at the time that he said it was 27, I find it ironic that it was only maybe a month after, or a month and a half after my son was executed. My son was number 39.
Wow.
Then it went up to 51. Now, Joe Biden, vice president, said there was only 27. He said it on national television. I was watching it. I couldn't believe that he even said it. He said, you know, things happen. You know, it was only 27, and you know, fully aware of what's going on. No, you're not. You didn't even know how many were murdered over there on insider attacks.
Even if it's one, it's still one.
Right.
And the parents of that one person, you ask them.
Right.
That's the key.
That's true. And the other part that got me is that that morning, on August 10th, I think at about like 8, between the hours of 8 and 9 that morning, in Afghanistan, maybe a couple miles away, they were having breakfast. A couple older officers, superior, you know, our officers, Army. I think they were Army. I'm not sure. They were executed the same way. They were sitting at a breakfast table, but they had their weapons on them in their holsters. A green on blue attack occurred. One of the police officers came into the base while they were eating breakfast and opened fire on them and killed 3 officers. Our officers.
Wow.
Nobody wanted to even mention that about it, so they let that go. But that happened in the morning. Now, right then and there, that should have been, everybody should have been on high alert.
Right.
They should have automatically gave everybody back their weapons all over Afghanistan and said, be on high alert. You know, this is what happened this morning. 3 soldiers were murdered early this morning at breakfast. Later on that night, my son still didn't have his weapon on him. And my son didn't even know about what happened in that morning because they didn't announce it. We didn't find out about it until days later.
Wow.
So it winds up, my son and the other 2 gentlemen were murdered later on that night. So in that one day, 6 soldiers died.
Wow, that's so sad.
And all they want to talk about, they talk about my son, but nobody really mentions too much about those other soldiers in the morning, you know, because the media doesn't want to talk about it. They just rather just brush it underneath the table and let's move on from here. You know, the media, you know, they can, you know, the government controls the media, so if the government doesn't want us to know something, we're not going to find out about it.
Find out, right? Unless you would create a grassroots movement, right? Like what you're doing now.
Yes.
You know, telling people, you know, you know, that's how it probably will
And the sad part about this whole thing is that my son, at 20 years of age, called his own death. You know, and as a dad, you know, it's heart-wrenching for me as a dad to have a 20-year-old boy, you know, a good straight-up kid who loved people, loved basketball, loved having a good time, a regular kid, you know, thinking that he was going to go to his service and, you know, become a Marine and try to do the right thing by the American people, where, you know, and the government, and do the right thing by everybody, and the government just turned around and just dropped the ball, and they just make believe he's nothing. You know, he's just, you know, a little pawn on a chess game. You know, oh, we lost another pawn, you know, so big deal. As long as the king and the queen are still safe, that's all that matters. You know, these men don't join the Marine Corps, the Army, or the Navy to be murdered and no repercussions. You know, if he was murdered out on the battlefield, we'll have to accept that.
Right, right.
You know, we would have to say,
right.
you know what, this is what he joined,
Right.
and you know, we'll have to deal with it in our own way.
But this was
But
clearly murdered, basically.
He was executed inside of a
right.
gym.
Right.
And our government made an agreement with the Afghan government to turn around to take their weapons away from these boys and not guard them. Now, we shouldn't have been 30 on 30 and then let them have their civilians, the T-boys, walk in and out of the compound. That should never have been. You shouldn't have been allowed to have anybody in that compound. And we should have had 60 Marines and maybe 30 Afghanis. And that's how, and they shouldn't have had their guns at night. And if they even did, then we should have ours too. Like we do
balance.
now.
There has to be a balance, basically.
Right. And there was no balance.
Yeah, that's the problem.
You know, if there's a balance, you know, you like this.
Right.
But it was no balance there at all. And it's terrible. But they did change the policy, like we said before. You know, now they do. And there hasn't been any more murders inside the facilities anymore ever since then. And over in Afghanistan, young kids talk about Greg Buckley Jr. now. And the family of Greg Buckley Jr., that because of them, none of us are being murdered on the inside. And these kids are more comfortable. They're sleeping at night because they know they're fully armed.
Right.
Because these guys over there, a lot of them are cowards. And they waited till my son had no weapon on him at all.
Yep.
You know, they could have did it at the table. But you know what? My son would have had a fork or a knife. He might have stood a chance at the table.
Right.
But he waited till he was sitting inside a gym on a bench with headphones on.
Yeah.
You know, singing and joking around with his friends with headphones on.
Oh.
And it's sad because we received, you know, a box of his clothing and everything, and his headphones were still in there. And, you know, it's heart-wrenching because they don't realize the effect that it has on the families.
Right.
See, when you murder a young man like that, you didn't just murder one young man. You murdered a family. You murdered aunts, uncles, cousins, brothers.
Absolutely
you know,
right. Yep.
my younger boy, he turned around the other day. You know, my son used to box in the Marines, so he the other day opened up his box and put on his boxing trunks and his shoes, and he had his mouthpiece. And then my other son, Shane, you know, he was looking at his headphones, and he was looking at the wax on the headphones from his ears. And he was just putting them in his ears and just thinking about his brother.
Boy.
So it's like, you know, it's devastating.
It's devastating. I mean, I agree with you.
And what the government is doing now is that they're tormenting people like myself and my brothers and my sisters and everybody. It's pure torment because they don't want to give us any justice at all. They want us to sit back and just take it, you know, like, all right, well, your son died, and we feel bad for you. So here's a little, you know, condolence letter, you know, from, you know, Barack Obama and Michelle Obama. Oh, we're sorry, you know, for your loss. And so, now I find out that I'm not the only one that received that same letter. He sends the same identical letter to every fallen victim, every single one.
Same thing.
He doesn't take the time out to write a sincere letter and talking and mentioning Shane and Justin, my other two boys. It's just, it's
conflict.
It's so sad. It's sad that they just blow us off. And then you have Michelle Obama, and I'm not a woman hater, I love women. But this woman says that she's there for the fallen soldiers, that she makes it a point to hug and comfort all the fallen soldiers' family members and contact them. Well, you know what? She was at Hofstra during the, you know, where they were running for election, and she didn't once, she was only 20 minutes from my house. She didn't once come over. She didn't once pick up a phone and say anything to my kids or to, you know, Greg's mom. You know, the day of Greg's burial, Barack Obama was in Manhattan, the day of his funeral. My son had thousands of people at his funeral. I mean, everybody was there, everybody. But he was right over the bridge. He could have came right over that bridge and just passed his condolences, did something, show some emotion. No phone call, no nothing. Nothing. And it's just heart-wrenching that, you know, this is what these guys get back, you know.
Well, I'm so sorry to hear about that, and we pray for your son in our prayer. We put him on our prayer.
I know you do.
Definitely. And I mean, one thing is good that at least, you know, like, I'm not saying that murder is good, but whatever you doing, and so you took upon you, and now at least other soldiers will have the weapons, and they'll be feel safer then.
Well,
you know.
definitely. Well, you know, I just want to bring light to it is that these young men and women You know, first and foremost, I have to get justice for my son.
Right.
I don't want it to go on for 8, 9, 10 years like somebody told me it might take.
Right.
I need the man to be prosecuted as a terrorist so we can bring him back to the States and prosecute him here. But not like they're doing to these parents from 9/11, where these terrorists are still being tried. It's 12 years now, and they still haven't been prosecuted yet. So what you're doing here is you murdered over 3,000 people. You destroyed their families. So let's add another 100,000 onto that. Now you're tormenting them for 12 years. For 12 years, they don't have justice.
Feeding and everything, all the expenses also, or taxpayer dollar, basically.
And we're turning around and paying for these pieces of garbage to be in jail.
Right.
And they're laughing at us because they're still getting 3 meals a day, and they're getting to hang out and talk and do whatever they want to do. Now, the family members of the fallen victims of 9/11 are being tortured every day. Every day they got to wake up and go on and look at pictures of their sons or their daughters and thinking of the great memories they had with them. And knowing that these people that murdered their family members are still alive and up and about and just having a great old time, you know? Because they're savages as far as I'm concerned. So if they're in jail, you know, it doesn't matter to them. It's fine. As long as they're getting their 3 meals a day, that's it.
Yeah, they don't care.
But they're also, what they're doing, these pieces of garbage, is that they're making the rest of their community and their country look terrible. Because like I said, not all Muslims are bad. You know, not everybody in Afghanistan is bad. You have a few people that are evil, but they're making everybody else look bad.
It's only like very few percentage actually.
Yeah.
Majority of the people are common people, and
common people like you and I.
Leave, you know, and go home and sleep. That's all.
You know, in Afghanistan, you probably you know, I've spoke to a few people, and they're wonderful people.
Yeah,
you know, they're not bad people in Afghanistan.
Exactly.
There's just a lot of hateful people that there's a small majority, but they just cause so much heartache and so much damage to people.
They hold hostage the majority of the people.
Right. Basically. So it's just that even with Greg now, this gentleman that they got, they're telling me maybe, you know, a couple of years, 6 years, 7 years, he'll be prosecuted, and we're not sure if he's going to be prosecuted here. They'll probably be prosecuted in Afghanistan. Now, if he's prosecuted in Afghanistan, I don't think anything's really going to happen to him at all. You know, it's just, there's so many problems over there, and I don't think us going over there and, you know, putting a Band-Aid on it is going to solve the problem. You know, it's going to keep on bleeding and bleeding. And I think we have to worry about the United States. I think we have enough problems here. I think the economy's suffering. I think people are out of jobs. You know, the unemployment rate is up higher. There's a lot of terrible things that are going on over here. I think we have to focus more back here. And start from the root and just work up again. But we're not doing that. We're worried about everybody else on the outside. We've got to worry about our own in here, because we're suffering. Because our politicians are too busy sticking their noses into other people's business where they don't belong. And
how can we help?
All I ask is for everybody to just get together as one and take control of this. If the government doesn't want to take control of it, then the American people have to take control of it. And it doesn't matter if you're from India, Pakistan. If you're an American citizen, then you're an American citizen. It doesn't matter what color your skin is, it doesn't matter what race, it doesn't matter what religion you believe in. We're all one. We all have our own different beliefs, but at the end of the day, when we put our heads on the pillow, we're all the same. Okay? And that's what people have to seem to understand, and they got to forget about all this hatred and all this, you know, he believes in this and he believes in that. You know what? If you believe in Allah and you believe in, you know, Jesus Christ, and you believe in, you know, whatever, everybody has their own beliefs. I'm nobody to tell anybody that they have to believe in my beliefs. You know, I'm a Roman Catholic. That doesn't mean everybody has to be. Everybody has to just appreciate what everybody else is, and everybody get along with each other. And you know what? For me as a father right now, I have so much hate inside my heart that I could grab somebody and I could kill them in my bare hands. That's how much hate I have for that one individual. Okay, even the captain of the police department, if I could get him, I can get my hands around his throat, I would kill him. And then 2 seconds later, I would hug and kiss anybody right next to him, because you know what? That's the type of person I am. You know, I'm not a hateful person like that. But these two men destroyed my family, and they destroyed me as a person. all I want people to do and understand is that if everybody got together and everybody got on the same page, what a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful world we would all have.
Right. Yep.
But people are so self-centered, and they so stuck in believing in their own beliefs, and they push their beliefs onto other people.
That's where the problem starts.
Yeah, and everybody shouldn't. You don't push something on other people. If that's your religion, then you know what? Then so be it. And God bless you. You know, go on with your life and have a beautiful life, as long as you're not hurting anybody.
Right. Right. Right.
So in the world that I live in, you don't hurt people. You know, everybody should just get along as one, and just, you know, let's have a beautiful, and as outrageous as that sound, and you say that could never happen, but it really could happen if everybody wanted it to happen. You know, everybody could get along one way or the other. And, you know, years and years ago with Martin Luther King, you know, whoever thought, you know, things would be the way they are today.
Right.
But it's great, you know. Everybody gets along. A lot of my best friends are African American. They're great people, you know. Look at the president. Things have changed.
Yes, definitely.
So I'm just saying that things could change again for the better if everybody just wants to turn around and work together as a unit, one unit.
And respect each other.
And respect each other to the fullest.
Yeah.
If you don't respect each other, then you have nothing.
Right, exactly.
So that's all I'm asking, is for everybody to get together as one and respect each other. And I think things would work out a lot better for everybody in this world. And concentrate on the United States
of America
first. We have to worry about us, and then we'll take care of others. You know, I don't see, you know, Russia over there. I don't see China. You know, I don't see them over there in the Middle East, you know, doing what we do.
Exactly. You know.
So why are we doing it, but all these other countries aren't doing it? You know, you got two other powerful countries, but they're stepping out. They're not getting involved.
They only do themselves, you know, for them. That's it.
But you know what? They're obviously doing something right. You know, China is, you know, stronger than ever, and you know, I just think that we should just step back a little bit and just let everything lay down and just worry about ourselves here. We have a beautiful country here. We have beautiful people like yourself, you know, and I just think that we should just, you know, let things be.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, suggestions, comments, you can email me at rajamitv@gmail.com. Again, that's rajamitv@gmail.com. You can also watch our earlier aired shows on YouTube or on our Infosys International channel. Until next time, thank you. See you.
Sure.